It's very interesting.
Kind of messed up.
And
It's just like gross to see.
I don't really know what that is, and it doesn't seem right.
I don't like seeing that.
Disgusting.
I'm not gonna describe anything.
I think she looks nice. She probably likes bows or something, and she's crisscross applesauce.
It doesn't really make me feel good about my own body.
If I will have to explain it, then it's like
They're half naked.
I don't want to talk about it. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Cover your eyes, cover your eyes.
Well, they have to do that in the bathroom.
I feel weird because she's in a very strange position and it doesn't seem like she has clothes on, and then there's a bunch of people trying to climb on top of her for whatever reason.
She looks very muscular to me. It makes me feel really scrawny.
I wish that I could see her whole face and her body so people wouldn't just like her for her breasts.
No, she's not a role model for me.
Makes me feel bad about my body.
I don't want to look at this picture anymore.
It's kind of inappropriate for younger kids to see naked women in advertisements and stuff.
I'd rather not know about this. Well, I think kids would feel uncomfortable with it if you're next to it.
We already see like bad things in the street, so why should we have like people promoting that?
Here are some of the most common gender role stereotypes in advertising. For decades, advertisers have been using stereotypes as a method to shape the way consumers make their purchasing decisions. Marketers are constantly seeking ways to make their products more easily identifiable to specific groups. A very prominent stereotype found in advertising are gender role stereotypes. Gender roles are a set of societal norms which dictate the types of behaviors which are generally considered acceptable, appropriate, or desirable for people based on their actual or perceived sex or sexuality. Despite people's desire to strive toward greater gender equality and avoid conceptions that men and women are to serve distinct roles in society, popular media and commercials seem insistent on portraying gender in very traditional ways.
My name's Tom Meganson. I'm the creative director at Acart Communications. We're a change marketing agency in Ottawa.
I'm Tony Lyons. I'm president and creative director of Alphabet. We are a 17-person communications agency here in Ottawa, and we've been in business for about 15 years.
My name is Liam Mooney. I'm the CEO of Jack Pine, started 4 years ago. In my bedroom, I teach at Carleton University in the communications department. I also own another company called NICA. It's a shared studio space for creative people and outsiders.
I think we still see references to what we'd call stereotypes of specific genders and sexualities and relationships between those things. I think they do still exist. I don't think they exist as much as they used to exist. And I think that advertisers and brands have realized that as a reflection of how society has changed and the acceptance of different ways that people consider gender and consider gender roles within families, even what families are, that's all changed quite a bit. So I think advertising is a reflection of that. And it is gradually changing, but some older brands that haven't really embraced that change are still relying on the stereotype of specific genders for sure.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that we would want to portray the characters involved in anything we're developing for a brand in the way that best suits the objective for that brand, so long as it isn't unethical or inappropriate.
You know, we have to be very careful about stereotyping people, not only from a gender point of view, but like racially, sexuality, religion, those types of things. So, you know, it's an inclusive country. We're speaking to Canadians. Canadians get it. So, you know, we try to not use stereotypes because really, I think it's a hackneyed approach, and people will look at it and there's an adverse reaction to it just naturally. So we would do the opposite of stereotyping. We actually have a bit of an affirmative action approach to it. So
I think less effective. You know, the advent of public relations has been about trying to use understandings of human psychology to exploit the human psyche to sell products. But I think we're sort of potentially at an age or at a time when people have been exposed to so many tactics and so many messages that there is a certain awareness, and I think society is in a lot of ways trying to break traditional definitions of things, and for good reason. It's not only less effective, but it's detrimental to a brand's equity and what they're trying to do to try to use these techniques. Advertising in a lot of ways is trying to make people feel like they're inadequate and that they need these products or these fast fashions to be a more perfect version of themselves when they are in and of themselves perfect as a person just for being. You know, they don't need more.
it just doesn't make sense because that's not how people think about themselves anyway. So they're trying to connect with people emotionally, and if your message is not in line with how people are already thinking, well, it's just going to fail, you know?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest problem is that it works. We don't tend to do that kind of advertising here. We're a social issues marketing company, so we're actually trying to get away from that. But I understand how it works in the commercial world. The fact is that female sexuality tends to attract the attention of both men and women. And that's what makes it really challenging to get rid of. In the case of men, assuming they're heterosexual men, you know, they see a woman sexualized and it's hard for them not to notice the billboard or whatever. With women, it tends to be, and this sounds sexist itself, and I'm not trying to, but it tends to be more aspirational. So when they advertise to women in, let's say, Chatelaine or Cosmopolitan would be a better example, you're going to see the model looking all beautiful and sexy, and that's what's considered an aspirational portrayal. So women are supposed to look at that and say, oh, I want to be as beautiful and sexy as her. It's unfortunate that it still seems to happen all the time, but the thing is that advertisers, especially if you're in the commercial advertising field, they are there to make money for their clients. So they're going to use what works. I don't want to blame the consumer for this, but it is a vicious circle. People continue to give attention, even negative attention sometimes, to sexualized campaigns helps them. Because if the target audience isn't the people being offended, the people being offended can sometimes actually make the people who like those ads more likely to make that purchase because, you know, the whole anti-politically correct thing.
Women are being sexualized for sure. So are men in advertising. And the reason that they are being is because it's easy. It's easy and it's lazy, right? So the problem that agencies have is that they're required to show measurable impact for their work. The easiest way to do that is to pull the triggers that are the most easy to pull, and one of those triggers is sex and sexuality. Is it right? No, but it's easy and it works. And you know, that's the unfortunate reality of it. For both men and women, men are sexualized as well. Women more so. The reality is that men are now being portrayed as dumb and ignorant in shows. You only have to look at Family Guy. You only have to look at every sitcom. The dad is an idiot. He's not the authoritative power figure anymore, you know? And I feel the negative impact on young men has been really quite shocking. Young men, and this is an affirmative action thing, young men no longer feel empowered. They actually feel like they're dumb. And it's really hard for young guys now.
I think it's because the advertising agency of today is completely bankrupt of any real creativity whatsoever, that they've jumped the shark and they have to attach all of their promotion to somebody else's name instead of having attributes of their own products that are interesting to people. And so rather than build something of real meaning that can connect with people on a fundamental level, they do the easy, lazy thing. They spend money, they buy a celebrity, and they, like pin the tail on the donkey, they just stick their brand on them, knowing that this celebrity will connect with demographics A, B, and C. So to me, it's kind of, it shows that advertising is dead.
You know, it's not just about us being outraged about women's sexuality being used for marketing purposes. It's women are doing that and owning their own sexuality. So that's actually a point of empowerment as well, which is a kind of a different way of thinking about it. Do I agree with it? Not really, but you know, I also understand it.
It's really hard to know what will be happening in the next 5 to 10 years because things are changing so fast. But what we do know throughout almost all of sort of the most recent millennia is that white men kind of set up and maintain power structures, and so they'll continue to use their image making machines for sure. For what it's worth, like as I said at the beginning, like I'm a white cis male, like I benefit from all the power structures that have been created exclusively. And so, you know, in a lot of these circumstances, I'm not really the voice that should be talking, if that makes sense. I'm a voice that needs to be silenced in a lot of ways. Just, you know, from sort of the male perspective, but I don't know how many people would speak as openly as I have, but I think it's a real problem.
The fact that the public has a much stronger voice in advertising now is really the biggest change that we're dealing with right now. Advertisers make a misstep and everyone hears about it. And the other thing is brands now aren't just the ads. There was a time when the only exposure you got to a brand was basically the advertising, and then you got the seeing it in the store, let's say for a retail brand. Well, now your exposure to a brand is how they treated some guy in an airplane, you know, last weekend. Your exposure to the brand is what organizations the CEO belongs to, who they give their money to. The fact is that the consumers have way more power than they used to have. It's not just a bunch of people blindly, you know, like seeing an ad and going out and buying a Coke. Now it's like people are evaluating, does Coke align with my values? And so I think that it's going to naturally change in this direction. I don't think that the advertising industry itself is going to suddenly make a huge change just to be good, just to be more ethical, or just to be better, because advertising is reactive. Advertising doesn't lead the way in social change. Even in social marketing, advertising isn't leading the way. Advertising is just trying to affect behavior in these very small ways.
What would I do if I could reach inside of me and to know how it feels to say,